Hey everybody, well this is going to be part 6, trying to get this old truck back on the road. Today we're going to be working on the fuel system. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to back the truck out where I have room to work out beside it, pull the gas tank out, and then I'll be able to clean it. I don't have quite enough room to pull the gas tank out with it sitting where it is. Gas tank comes out real simple. It's 3 bolts across the top. I think there's 1 or 2 at the bottom. I'm not sure. I know the later models have them. But then there's filler neck hose, 2 wires plugging onto the sending unit, and the fuel line has got a fitting that goes in the top of the tank. And just got to take all that loose and pull it out. Okay, I've already taken my 2 hose clamps loose here on this rubber hose going from the filler neck to the tank. And I've still got to take this fitting loose. This is the fuel line. And then these 3 bolts here across the top. And it should be ready to come out now. But first, I think I'm going to pull this fuel sending unit out. I've already unplugged the wires from it. It's just got a ground wire, plugs in here, and then your wire here that goes up to the gauge, to the fuel gauge. Okay, I got the gas filler neck out, and here where you can see it a little better. And this rubber grommet that goes around it through the cab. I want to leave all this mold and age weathered stuff on here because it matches the rest of the truck. But if I ever do wash the truck, well, I will eventually. When I do wash it, that'll come off then. I can even take a brush and scrub it, and it'll clean it up good. I need to see if I can get this off of here. Just set the filler neck aside for now. I'll clean that up later. Now it looks like it's chance of rain, so I'm going to pull the truck back inside. Okay, now got some acetone here. This is some used that I've been using for parts washing. So it's a little dirty, but it'll be fine to pour into the tank there. And I've got about a half a gallon of fresh acetone over there in another can like this. Pour that in there too. Tape off the open holes, let it soak. And then we'll slosh it around good. Okay, now then we'll let that sit for a while. Let that acetone dissolve the leftover fuel that has been in that tank for 18 plus years. So, reason I take the openings off is because I don't want that acetone to evaporate, because it will evaporate pretty quickly. So we'll let that sit, and I may stand it up. I've got a jack stand standing behind it just to keep it from laying over. May stand it up a little more straight to get it a little more towards this front edge too. Have it sitting more like it was sitting when it's bolted up in the truck. I still may get a different tank for it. I'll work with this one a little bit, see how it goes. Maybe able to find a fuel cell or a gas tank for a later model pickup that fits between the frame, and I may be able to modify it to make it work. We'll see. Because I do like having that extra room behind the seat in the cab now. We'll see how this one goes first. So I'm going to let that soak, and we'll come back to it. Well, last time I worked on the old F100 was back in May. It is now about halfway through December. It is December 15th, actually. So, since last time I worked on it, I had cancer removed from my tongue. I had 2 spots on the bottom of my tongue. That's why I've got a speech impediment now. If you haven't seen my previous video explaining that, that's why I'm talking with a little bit of a slur now. But they removed 42 lymph nodes, and one of them had cancer in it. And I've had 30 radiation treatments and 6 chemotherapy treatments since then. And all those treatments really run my energy down, felt like crap. But it's been since September, since my last treatments. I'm feeling better. Last week I just went in for surgery so they could do another biopsy on some tissue from the back of my tongue. They had a little spot showed up on a PET scan. But they say they don't think it's cancer. It's probably just inflammation left over from the radiation, because I still had some pain from the radiation. Still haven't fully healed. Some of my hair still hasn't come back yet. So I'm still got some of the effects from the radiation, but feeling better. So that being said, we're going to see if we can get back to work. The old F100. Where I left off, I had the fuel tank soaking with acetone to help dissolve the old fuel that was left in the bottom of the tank. And there's still liquid in there. So should be able to clean it up pretty good. I've gotten some gravel in a box right there that I'm going to put in it with some, I've got some purple power. I want to use some purple power and some water to dilute it down. And with the gravel, slosh it around, help scrape off all the rust. Now, I'm using gravel. You can use nuts, bolts, BBs, pretty much anything to knock the rust loose on the inside. I prefer the gravel because it does have like a grindstone effect to where it will kind of, rub at the rust. It don't just knock the loose flakes loose. It helps rub away some of the surface rust too. So, but whichever you want works good as long as you use fuel filters. I'll still have to use fuel filters on this even after I do this. So after I do that, then we'll drain all the purple power and water out of it. Wash it out good with just clean water. And I've got some denatured alcohol that I'm going to pour in it to slosh around, and that'll help absorb and evaporate any leftover water that's left in the tank after all that. So, that being said, I'll get started. Now I've told you the process. There's nothing to it, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do, but it's not hard to do. There's nothing complicated about it. After that, I'll just have to check the fuel line from the tank to the fuel pump, and then run a new line from the fuel pump to the carburetor. And I have a new carburetor I'm going to put on, and I'm going to put a fuel filter in too. I said that before, I meant to mention it then. I'm going to put a fuel filter between the tank and the fuel pump, and then may even put one between the fuel pump and the carburetor just to catch any residual trash that may be on it. So, being said, let's get started. All right, first off, we got to dump out the acetone out of the tank. I'm gonna dump it in this bin here so we can put it into a safe container to have it properly recycled. Any chemicals or anything, you don't want to just dump out on the ground. Even like antifreeze, they say antifreeze is safe to dump on the ground if you dilute it enough, but I don't take any chances with that because antifreeze is very dangerous for dogs and pets, and neighbors have dogs here, so I don't want anything to happen to them. So everything will be properly disposed of. Nasty that is, a lot of rust, really nasty, but a lot of rust in it. So I'm gonna get one of the old acetone cans, dump that in so it can be disposed of properly. I recommend doing this outside so you don't have all these fumes inside your shop. Phone won't fit. You'll find another one. Well, I couldn't find one of my good phones, so got this old piece of a Marvel Mystery Oil bottle. It'll work. Always mark your containers so you won't get this mixed up with your good chemicals, and you'll know that this needs to go to recycling. So set this in the corner of your shop. When you get enough of it accumulated up, take it all to recycle at once. Now there's some rust inside the filler neck I'm going to hit with this steel wire brush, just because the gravel won't be able to get up in there and do a whole lot of good. So I'm going to take a minute to brush it with this. Be fine. First, before I put the gravel in, I'm going to put in some purple power and some water, slosh it around, empty that into my catch bin, and then I'll put my gravel in. Right now, to empty this, I'm going to put it in these old antifreeze jugs, and to help make sure that the jug doesn't fall over, I'm going to put it inside this bucket. That way if it does fall over, I'll catch anything that spills. Those y'all will also want to mark this bad to be recycled. Most chemicals will have directions on how to properly dispose of them, or where to take them to recycle. All right, I got about 4 gallons of water. I'm gonna put about a half a gallon of purple power and gravel, all that in the tank. I'm gonna put it up on the tailgate so I can rock it back and forth, let it slide in there, grind all that rust loose. One thing about these gravel, it's so small, they may get caught in the pickup tube or in some of the baffles in some fuel tanks. So you gotta keep that in mind. I'm hoping if I bang it around, shake it around enough, they'll come loose. I'll blow air back through the pickup tube, make sure nothing's caught in there, and then I'll shake them out some more. So, should be okay. Just keep that in mind when you're doing this. Now, the reason I'm doing this a handful at a time is this gravel has been sitting for a long time. And all the real fine dust and small particles should have settled to the bottom. I just want the bigger stuff that's on top. So that way I'm not adding just plain dust and dirt to dust and dirt that's already in the tank. Now, you can use regular gravel while you drive away. I just found this at one of the bin stores that I go to. I think I paid like 50 cents for that box of gravel. If it is worth that to keep from having to sift out dirt and sand out of driveway gravel. So, that's the only reason I'm using that. Regular gravel and driveway work just fine. Now I just got to tape these holes up good. And brought this painter's tape out. I think I'm going to use Gorilla tape. Now that I think about it, it'll seal better. Well, I think that'll be good enough. I got all the sides, the bottom, the one pass on the top, and then my tape come loose. Not too worried about the top of the tank. Just the one pass should have knocked anything loose that was about to come loose. But the top of the tank's not very rarely going to have gas all the way to the top anyways. Alright. Now comes the fun part of emptying it and then washing it out. Okay, well, I got most of the gravel out. Might be a few small gravel left, but it shouldn't hurt anything. A lot of that will come out when I wash it out with clean water. And I spilled some of my purple power mixture on my tailgate and bumper. And I've heard that's not good for paint or chrome. So I'm going to get a bucket of water and pour that on it to help rinse it off. Should be fine after that. But yeah, any little gravel that might be left in there, I don't think will hurt nothing. As long as they don't stop up the pickup tube, which they shouldn't. All right, I'm going to take a little break and then we'll wash the tank out. And after you wash it out with clean water, once you get it good and clean, you can blow it out with an air hose. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pour in some denatured alcohol, slosh that around in there good, then dump it out and then blow it out. And that'll help that denatured alcohol absorb the water and it'll help it evaporate faster. Okay, Well, I've got the gas tank washed out with clean water. There's still a couple gravel in there, a little bit of residue, but it shouldn't hurt nothing. Fuel filter should stop any residue from making it through to the fuel pump. Then another fuel filter after the fuel pump will keep it out of the carburetor. And the gravel should settle. The gravel should settle in the seam in the bottom of the tank. Shouldn't go nowhere. Should be fine. Eventually, I'm going to get a fuel cell for this truck when I completely restore it. So for now, this will work. And now that I've rinsed it out good with clean water, I'm going to use this denatured alcohol. And got 2 cans of it. I'll pour it in there, slosh it around, let it mix with all the leftover water in there, and then empty out what I can. Now this stuff you can dump out right on the ground. It won't hurt anything. It's just alcohol. That's all it is. It'll evaporate. Just make sure no pets or anything around that'll get into it before it evaporates. So it'll be fine. Just pour out right on the ground. It's clean. Won't hurt anything. All right. And after that, I'm going to take the air hose, blow it out good, help dry it up some more. Going to blow through the pickup tube, make sure nothing's caught in that. And should be about ready to put it back in the truck. Alright, it looks a lot better. There's a little bit of residue stuck in the bottom of the tank from the old gas. Fresh gas will dissolve that over time and shouldn't hurt anything. Like I said, I'm going to put some fuel filters on it. That residue with fresh gas in it should be a small enough mixture that it'll still burn without hurting the carburetor. Now next, I'll have to back the truck out so I can take the fuel tank in through the passenger door because I don't have enough room there in the shop. I'll just back it out over here. It'll be fine. Gas tank fastens in the back of the cab behind the seat. These little clips in a little channel in the back of the seat. And the old ones are pretty rusty. I bought these new ones a while back, so I'm going to put new ones in, new bolts, and I won't have to worry about that then. Okay, well, the gas tank is back in. Just got to hook up the filler neck and the fuel line, put in the sending unit. I'll have to test that, make sure it works first. I'm going to do the rest of that inside. It's getting dark. I'm going to call it a night, I think. All right. Get this thing pulled back inside out of the weather since I still don't have a hood on it. Okay, well, what I've got to do now, I've got to check the fuel line from the gas tank up to the fuel pump. Okay, there's a metal line comes out of the gas tank, goes down underneath the cab, then there's a rubber line that connects that to another metal line. That metal line runs along the frame rail up to the cross member by the fuel pump. And then there's a rubber line that'll connect that line to the fuel pump. And that's where I'm going to put my fuel filter. And this fuel pump has a built-in fuel filter, so I'm not going to worry about putting a fuel filter after the fuel pump, because I've got 2 fuel filters already in line before it gets the carburetor. And I can always add another one later if I need to. But first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get underneath, cut the rubber line off, because it's still got the factory rubber line underneath. And it still seems to be good, but I'm going to replace it anyways. But when I pull it off, I can take the piece out of the cab, check it for leaks, then piece on the frame rail. I'm going to use some brake cleaner, and I've taped some electrical tape on the stem so I can push this up into the end of the fuel line, and it'll help to seal it. And that way I can spray it in there and then check for leaks along the length of the tube. All right, well, got the line out of the cab. This is rubber hose where it was connected. See what I mean about it being a factory hose? See this clamp? This one I'm pitched on metal clamps they put on from the factory. So, yeah, that's a pretty old piece of hose there. This line will probably be okay. There's still some brown and yellow old gas dissolving inside the line, but over time that'll fix itself. And this rusty corner here, it doesn't look good, but I don't see any pinholes. I don't see anywhere it might have been leaking. Okay, well, I've got the fuel line done. Just reusing the original metal line. I put in a new piece of rubber line though, where it goes from the piece that comes from the tank that goes under the cab. I put a new piece of rubber line that connects that to the piece that goes into the frame. And I've got new rubber line and a fuel filter going into the fuel pump. All I gotta do now is just run gas line from the fuel pump up to the carburetor. I've still got to get the filler neck figured out. This one's real rusty inside. Okay, well, I got the fuel system done now, I think. I've got the fuel line run from that side of the carburetor. I put in this metal tube and made a bracket to hold it up off the intake so it won't heat soak so bad. And then I got a rubber line coming off that tube, going down the fuel pump, rubber line from the fuel pump to the fuel filter, from the fuel filter to the metal line on the frame rail, and run back, put a new rubber line from the metal line from the frame rail to the metal line coming out of the bottom of the cab from the tank. I blowed it all out, and there's a little bit of residual old gas in there, so I'm going to leave the old carburetor on for now, and I'll put the new one on after I run it some and get some of that trash out of it. So let's see if it'll run and idle and everything off of the gas tank. I've already put some gas in the tank, and it is picking up. I've already turned it over and had some gas pump out of the fuel pump. One thing I wanted to show you what I did on the filler neck. Before I put it back on the tank, I went to Walmart and I found these brushes that have the stems that are made to go in a drill. I made up this long extension and put this in a drill. I used electrical tape to help hold it on because it would come all apart if I didn't. And then I just used that up inside that metal tube, and the rubber connector that goes from the filler neck to the tank. I cleaned it up and reused it because it's still in good shape. It wasn't dry rotted. I don't know what kind of rubber it was, but it's good, so I don't use it. And got it all cleaned up real good with that. And put it all back together. Put new clamps on it. I bought new clamps for it. So, let's see if it'll crank and run. Alright, well, that's got the fuel system done. I'm not going to run it and drive it too much because I don't know how much fuel is in it. There's not much. And the fuel gauge isn't working. And that's not going to be addressed when I start working on the wiring. It's either in the wire going from the instrument cluster to the sending unit, or it's in the fuel gauge itself. The fuel sending unit should be good because I pulled it from another truck. But yeah, the fuel system is done. And when I get some more gas put in it, I'm going to put some of this here, Lucas upper cylinder lubricant in it to help keep what little bit of old gas in there from possibly causing the valves to stick. Because the old gas is like varnish on the inside of the fuel lines and the bottom of the tank. And the gasoline will dissolve that in time. And that old gas running through there, it'll stick your valves in the valve guides. So I'm going to put some of that in there that'll help lubricate that, help keep that from happening. When I get enough gas in there, it'll be diluted enough to where it shouldn't hurt nothing, but I don't want to take no chances. It's a good engine. I don't want to mess it up. I almost messed it up already when I found out the oil pump wasn't working. So got everything working good. It's a good engine. Don't want to mess it up. So well, that's going to do it for this video. I'll try to get the next video out pretty soon. Now I'm feeling better. I'll try and get to work back on this a little more regular. Next will be wiring. I've got to get a battery box made and straighten out some of the wires here under the hood. Then I'll be able to put the hood on. Now, I pulled the battery box off of one of my other trucks, and I can always get one for it later. And I got the hold down clamp and everything for it too. So I'll see if I can get all that put in and make it work. If not, I've got some good sheet metal I can use to build my own box if I have to. So then after that, we'll be ready to put the hood back on. But yeah, it's coming along nicely. Battery box, a little bit of wiring, then the hood will go back on. Then I'll start working on the wiring in the cab and get all that working. I have headlights and I have marker lights and I have tail lights, but I don't have turn signals and I don't have brake lights. And I don't have instrument cluster lights. The alternator light stays on, but I think something's unhooked there because the alternator is charging. I have checked it. And the oil light will come on when it's running, but that's because I've run a manual oil pressure gauge and an aftermarket gauge that I'm going to mount to the bottom of the dash. So I did that so I'll know for sure I've got good oil pressure after that oil pump fiasco. So that being said, and them gauges I bought a 3-pack of gauges. Got temperature, voltmeter, and oil pressure. So when I hook up the voltmeter, then I'll know my battery's charging. I know it is already because I've checked it with the voltmeter. Then have my temperature gauge hooked up. I'll get all that done while I work on the wiring inside. And I've got to add more concentrated antifreeze to the cooling system because the concentration is pretty low right now. I checked it, and it's not protected. It's protected below freezing, but I'd rather let it be a little bit more protected. So, just in case. Because we do get in single digits here and sometimes in negatives here in the wintertime occasionally. So, just want to be sure. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this video. Yeah, keep an eye out for the next video. I'll try and get it out a little sooner. Hopefully, I get back into the habit of this, get things rolling, and then maybe I can start getting out a video more regular. So, be on the lookout for the next one, which should be battery box and wiring. And then, should be really close to road ready. Alright, well, appreciate y'all watching, and y'all take care.